Morning. Okay, but go back under the rock, yeah? Morning, Toph. Cactus. Harry. I don't want to watch High Score Girl. I don't. I don't want to do it. I'm watching Kid Phantom Thief right now. And also Classroom of the Elite when episodes come out of that. Those are the two things I'm watching right now. You should go on vacation, Keon. You should. Toph, maybe you should be born a couple of decades earlier and you'll know what song this is. Does anyone know what song this is? It's always Super Nintendo stuff I usually play here. Rings a Bull. What is it, Gus? For 2,000 points, what is the name of the song? some sort of shop theme, like items, spin things. No. I can name the game. I mean, this doesn't have to be a trivia. We got one. It's Mega Man 7. If you can guess. Spring Man. That's the answer we were looking for. What am I? There we go. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are refusing to kick field goals in, oh my God, obvious kick a field goal situations, posting selfies of yourself, flexing, as it is the current trend in the community, listening to the stream commentary live while playing on the stream, and taking the coaching advice from the commentators, and it actually ends up working out for you. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Obviously, this is going to be a bit of a different episode than normal. I have no idea how long this is going to. If this is going to go the full hour or not. We're just going to have one segment that we're going to be talking about here. And I know whenever there's things like this that happen in the community, I get more viewers than normal, which sucks. But I mean, it is what it is. For those that are not normally here, and you see this little box that says idiots in chat, this is maybe not an appropriate episode to have a title of idiots in chat, but that is typically what the chat is known as. And if you're wondering why the chat is known as that, is because the chat is typically full of idiots. Last week it was dominated by chants of hooch and something about people having hamburgers on their doorstep. So you're not really missing out on too much. That's pretty much what kind of goes on with that kind of stuff there. No weekly recap this week. I don't even know. I mean, I know what tournaments went on, but it's been far from my mind as far as just like sitting down and writing this one out here. News of tournaments may be of interest to the casual listener of the podcast. I honestly didn't even look up what was going on this weekend. I saw Little Squid League announce their tournament is going to be on the 10th, so not this upcoming Saturday, but the next one. The weekend after that is Genesis, and then the weekend after that is the final weekend of February. So we only got 3 Saturdays to work with here. Minnow Cup is this Saturday. I thought it was last Saturday. whatever. That would make sense, though. I think there was already one in January of this current month that I guess that we're sitting here in. Today we're going to be talking about Splatter Color Screen, the ban that IPL has lifted yesterday, and if you haven't been paying attention, IPL has already rescinded that ban and has switched to the opt-out system, offering an apology in the announcement channel. Obviously, that kind of took off across the competitive Splatoon community globe yesterday, so we're going to be spending some time talking about that here. So all that and more. But first, I want to start this off by saying this is not, everything that I'm saying here is not an official statement from IPL. This is just me sharing my personal thoughts and don't necessarily represent the org that I shell out here on the Popcast. I say that knowing full well that just because you say, oh, my thoughts are my own and they don't represent the org that I'm a part of, that's, yeah, technically you can say that, but at the end of the day, everything I say and do is a reflection of the org that I'm a part of. And same thing with like the IRL job that I have. I can't just be like, oh, nope, my thoughts are my own. Yeah, but the way I carry myself, the way I say things does reflect back on other things that I'm a part of, and that goes the same for everything. Everyone's responsible for their own tweets, their own things that they say. But even though they might not represent other things in your life, it definitely reflects on them, whether you want to believe that or not. Reality is what it is. I'm just going to come out right at the very beginning and be very transparent on the things that led to the ban yesterday as far as my concern. I'm not like leaking anybody else's in the IPL's thoughts or anything like that. I'm just going to share my own personal stance on things. I will say right up the front, I was one of the key people involved in the decision process of what we should have done with Splatter Color Screen post the new patch that came out that supposedly didn't fix things, but more so at least made it better. However, it still obviously has a negative impact on several people. I've shared my thoughts on here before about my thoughts on the opt-out system that other orgs, other standalone tournaments have used as far as how they address things with the Splatter Color Screen. And my thoughts have always been, why give the players the option to either decide to opt out or not when you could just ban it yourselves and not even have to let the players get into that uncomfortable position of having to announce to everyone that they want it banned. Now, people have pointed out you're not announcing anything medically when you do that, which is true. And you might have, for whatever reason, you might want to opt out of your opponent using the Splatter Color Screen and yourself, I guess. My stance has always been, though, it's better if the TOs just step in and outright ban it so that nobody has to announce anything or even kind of hint at anything they might not feel comfortable at hinting at and letting other people know. Obviously, there's been a lot of people come out yesterday and have talked about the fact that they don't feel uncomfortable letting people know that they don't want to use screen. Like, they have no issue absolutely opting out in the tournaments that allow for that. And I will say that's good, but I'm still aware that there are several people that are not vocal about it and won't be vocal about the fact that they don't want to share that information with anybody, that they don't want to opt out of things. They don't want to play against Splatter Color Screen, but they don't want to opt out because of it. So that's why I've always had this issue, or I've always taken the stance of it's better if the TOs just outright ban it so that players don't even have to worry about acknowledging anything. That has been my stance since day one, and I still believe that if you're leaning on the fence of banning screen, that you should just ban it outright and not even have the opt-out thing. That is my personal stance. Here is where I screwed up, because I tried to apply that same logic to the topic of unbanning it. Either if you're going to start banning things, my thought was either be all in, 100% committed to it, or be all out and just allow it to play out. I realized yesterday that my logic of protecting players by not having the opt-out thing and just banning it outright, while I still think that makes sense if you're banning it, what I failed to realize until yesterday is that that logic makes absolutely no sense if you're unbanning it. It doesn't give anybody any protection. In fact, what you're basically telling players by unbanning it is, and not having the opt-out, is basically, hey, if this affects you, we're not going to create a way to where you can work around it. You're pretty much stuck having to play against this and nothing else. That is the mistake. Well, not, I wouldn't be serious to call it a mistake. That was the misstep on my part of my own logic of applying that to a situation where it didn't even make sense to apply it to. It's really, I'm mad at myself because that is something I should have instantly recognized. Like, hey, this logically doesn't even make sense to not have the, if you're going to start unbanning things, to not have the opt-out system. But I was so stuck in my mind of, well, either be 100% in or 100% out. And that kind of led to this kind of issue that people were pointing out yesterday. Now, I am not the person who decides everything at IPL, but I'm definitely one of the people who has a voice in those conversations. So I just wanted to be clear and upfront that I had a incorrect statement, or I had an incorrect stance as far as the unbanning of splatter color screen. And well, I took it personally yesterday, as I should, not in a way of like, oh, wow, these people are saying mean things about us. Like, I was mad at myself because it's something I should have easily kind of recognized myself, and obviously just didn't. So yeah, did criticism go a little bit too far and transition into name calling and labeling of TOs and a little bit to abuse? Yes, 100%. But if I just use the negative things as an excuse, then I myself don't improve as a TO. If the only thing I do is look at all the hyper negative things, you get fixated on that and you don't start looking at the, okay, well, what are the stories that people are sharing? What is the more personal things that people are saying? Hey, this is how splatter screen is affecting me. Or, hey, yeah, this thing got changed, but now this is now worse for me. Or the audio is still a thing. Like, there were several people who left very fair and critical feedback as far as the statement that IPL put out yesterday. And it was pretty much frame one that we realized, oh, wait, the stance we came up with is wrong. This needs to be fixed. So ultimately, it did get fixed today. We may release the statement that we are switching to the opt-out system, which clearly was the choice that we should have went with at the very, well, I wouldn't say at the very beginning, but at least as far as yesterday, that is the choice that we should have gone with. And it's never too late to get things right. I hate it when any kind of organization or company will say something like, oh, we're making this stance, and then immediately switches it and goes with something else. But when you're wrong, you have to admit that you're wrong and make the adjustment and learn from it. This is what. So my biggest gripe with all, now that that's all out in the open and being honest and open about this kind of thing, my biggest gripe with with the over the line comments is when you see is when that's all that you see as a TO. You start becoming kind of blind to criticism. You don't start looking at things in a more, I guess, like a positive way, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at here. It starts to feel kind of overwhelming, and the mental toll starts to add up, and you start to lose sight of why you were part of a scene to begin with when you start focusing on some of the wrong things. There were several comments made yesterday. Again, kind of pointed out that the vast majority of it was fair criticism. And personally, I think the people that were calling for an IPL boycott, I think that's fair criticism as well. Yes, in theory, you're not the boycott in the sense of, oh, well, IPL doesn't make any money. We're all volunteers. It's not like you're taking money out of anybody's pocket. But yeah, I still feel like if you are upset with a decision, that boycotting is totally acceptable. I don't have. I know some people have come out and spoken out against that. I don't really think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's fair criticism if there's something that situation like this where people are passionately against the decision of things. And this isn't a sob story. Woe is me. Nothing is. There's when it comes to the amount of stress that comes with making TOing and when you make wrong decisions for things like this, there's being a TO in this community. Is something you just choose to do. There's nothing financially tying anybody down to doing this. I think if you're a land TO, you might get some reimbursement as far as like your room and stuff is. That's pretty much it. Like, there's nothing that I'm doing with IPL is going towards the daycare costs that we have to send with PJ for. So there's nothing that's like financially tying anybody down to this. If the stress becomes too much for anyone to deal with, the backlash when you do the wrong things and learning from them, there's nothing that's forcing anybody to stay. And sometimes, well, a lot of times, leaving is a very good option for stuff like this. So we saw Magic 8 Ball tweet out yesterday, essentially after Low Tide City, that he was going to be stepping away from the competitive Splatoon scene. Magic is somebody who I've looked up to somebody that I do look up to in this community. And I don't mean look up in the sense that like, oh, he's taller than me or anything. I'm pretty sure I'm 10 years older than Magic, so that's not what I'm getting at. But just somebody who's been a part of this community for a long time, a good leader, somebody who's not afraid to voice their opinions on topics. Magic helped out Destiny troops back when we were starting out. We had a player, Tofu, who started switching over to Slosher, and Magic really stepped in and started giving like some good Slosher advice to Tofu, and that really helped elevate his play style. He's been on this show about three or four times. I don't know how many times. Magic was on this show back in 2020, almost 4 years ago. I believe the first topic we talked about was the CCA. I don't know if he's a co-founder or if he started the CCA, but I do know he was heavily involved in the very beginning of it. Runs locals in Philadelphia, been a part of Squidboards. If you played in those Squidboard series, he helped bring it back for a couple of months, I want to say in 2022. The head TO, or one of the head TOs for Big House, which might be the most stacked grassroots competitive Splatoon tournaments that we've ever had. Low Tide City last year, which at the time was the biggest tournament of the year, as far as lands are concerned, is the along with Hammer, is one of the head TOs for Genesis this year, and I assume is one of the head TOs for Low Tide City again this upcoming year, or maybe he's just going there for fun, or I don't know. I would assume nothing is on is on Magic's mind other than Genesis at this point, considering it's just a couple of weekends away. But I don't really know what is involved. And my point is, Magic's been involved in so many different things. I always love his genuine passion that he has for the game. You know, even a stupid little low ink set when he was commentating those, which mean nothing to anything other than the people who watched low ink, you could just tell he was genuinely, authentically excited about what he was watching. Like you could just tell the passion was leaking through, and that's something I've always talked about is how you get a lot of commentators who just go on and you can tell like they have fake excitement, fake enthusiasm because they feel like they got to hype themselves up for a moment that might not meet their expectation. But no, you never got that sense from Magic when he was actually commentating. You just got the sense of like, okay, this is somebody who genuinely enjoys what they're watching and what they're doing. I don't speak for Magic. Obviously, Magic's more than capable of speaking for himself. And I haven't talked to him. Believe it or not, I haven't really been in a mood to talk to anybody for the past 24 hours. Maybe I'll reach out and see if he wants to come in for like a Genesis preview or something like that, or like a community exit interview or something. I don't know. But his announcement yesterday doesn't really surprise me. If you reading the tea leaves from the post that he puts out on Blue Sky, he's been pretty much unhappy with the Splatoon Twitter for a long time, and can't really blame him. I mean, you know, you saw it yesterday. And I've always been a guy who says TO should be held to a high standard, admit when they're wrong with things, and not shy away from fair criticism when the moment actually calls for it. On the flip side, though, I've always been a person to defend both myself and other TOs when the criticism that's been flung in their way is wrong and incorrect. You guys see us battle with people in help desk of low ink quite often. That's because a lot of the times it's somebody trying to explain to us that the rule they broke is dumb, or that the Swiss's Battlefy rules for tiebreakers are incorrect, or whatever. That's because when we know we're in the right, we're going to defend ourselves. I don't think TOs should just be giant punching bags when it's not fair and called for. In this situation, obviously, I think it's fair and called for, and you just got to kind of take your lumps. But whenever you are in the right, I feel like TOs should be standing up for themselves. That's something we've done a lot here on the Popcast, and that's something I know Magic has done a lot as well. However, when you're constantly in the situation of either battling people because you know you're right, or having to deal with the backlash because you know that you were the one that was in the wrong, it's exhausting, man. It's really exhausting. So I feel Magic's response yesterday, and you saw Beta announcing they're stepping away from TOing as well. I completely get it. I would hesitate in people pointing out the fact that this is a direct correlation that, and again, I don't speak for Magic, but I don't agree with the narrative of, oh, well, the over-the-top reaction to things yesterday is what ultimately led to Magic leaving. I think that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. But if you were, again, just reading the tea leaves of the things Magic's been saying for about a year now, this is something that's been kind of building up. And things that other TOs that have been a part of this scene for a long time start to kind of slowly realize as well. But I'm just not willing to buy into the fact that it was like, oh, everything is fine with everybody yesterday. And then when they see the reaction to IPL's ban, they start to realize, oh, okay. No, I'm doing a complete 180. I'm not willing to buy into that, even though I feel like a lot of people are taking Magic's tweet and trying to twist the narrative of it to fit that exact definition of what happened. I just don't really think that's fair. Which leads into another point that I kind of want to make about yesterday. A death threat was made against an IPL staff member at the same time as everybody was kind of voicing their opinions about the splatter screen ban situation. I can confirm that it did happen. I don't have specific details about it. If I did, I wouldn't go into specific details about it here. but it did appear to be from an alt account, and I haven't seen a screenshot of it either, so I don't really know where the threat was even made specifically. And I don't want to go into details because I don't want people to go into a witch hunt for this kind of thing. Obviously, this is a legal issue and it should be turned over to the proper authorities. But when people are like, release the screenshots, let's see who did it. If it's an alt account, do we really need the Splatoon community, the community, the Twitter community that we saw yesterday, be the start a witch hunt and start accusing people? Because if you accuse somebody and it's not actually them, you just accuse somebody of making a death threat against someone. That is something we kind of want to avoid, and should be something that the proper legal authorities should be taking care of. The Splatoon Twitter people court is not the justice system for things like this. My frustration with that whole scenario of, I mean, obviously, don't threaten to kill people. That's kind of an obvious no-brainer in my mind. It's likely somebody that's not associated with any side of this whatsoever. I don't know 100% for sure, and I'll tell you this, you guys don't know 100% for sure either. But my hunch is, if you have to be psychotic enough to think that that is an appropriate response to anything, you're probably not a person who actually has a take on the situation. I think you're just a jackass that's looking to try to, oh, well, this is an opportunity for me to flex my jackassery onto other people. So to say automatically that the threat came from one specific side or one specific group is not based in any facts that are present at this current time, and is something I kind of have an issue with. My disappointment might be an unpopular take with this one, is how everyone responded to the initial tweet that Hoenn put out announcing that a death threat was even made, by spreading this different narrative that was kind of set out about it. All the tweets were basically, disagreeing with TOs is fine, but threats against staff members is not acceptable, which is, of course, that statement is 100% correct. The issue is that it got shared so much, especially by people who have a lot of followers that bring a bunch of attention in to the specific issue, that the context of what was going on starts to get a little bit lost. All of a sudden, it's not some random jackass that's looking to just spark flames and cause issues. All of a sudden, it's being painted as the Splatoon community needs to be better because they're making death threats against their TOs, or that there's multiple people that are doing this, or that that it's the community. This is an issue that the community as a whole is facing. I don't buy into that. That's not how the Splatoon community operates at all. It was just one jackass, completely isolated in my mind from everything, just looking to cause trouble. But the narrative gets spread around long enough, and there's so many people getting their eyeballs on it now. If you look at some people who have a lot of followers that have tweeted out something, and again, with the intent of being fully supportive of TOs while still offering the idea of, hey, you should be able to speak out negatively against things as well. A lot of the people whose comments on it were, what is this about? What, why were they even threatened that? Who is Hoenn hero? Like, what is this even going on? And that's when the narrative starts getting twisted and it starts becoming something that's completely different from what it originally was. Similar situation, not an exact carbon copy situation, but a similar situation happened when Nintendo canceled their final event due to death threats that was made by towards Nintendo staff about a month, 2 months ago. And then the narrative immediately on Twitter jumped onto this idea that the threats were coming from people that were complaining about Splatter's screen. This was before the patch even came out. And this narrative really took off that, oh, the competitive Splatoon community is so upset about the splatter screen that they're making death threats towards Nintendo staff. And that really caught on, even though there's absolutely zero evidence to suggest that that is reality. But it didn't matter. One person made the comment, I guess, and then it just spread like wildfire. And now all of a sudden, the competitive Splatoon community is once again unjustly being painted in an unfair light for something that just really isn't fair to be painted in, obviously. The overall problem with the Splatoon community and with the situation that we saw yesterday is Twitter. Obviously, we at IPL made the wrong decision. It was pointed out to us pretty quickly, hey, you guys are making a wrong decision. You're right, we made a wrong decision. We wait till the next day when we get all our leadership back together. We figure out what the right step forward is. We announce it, and it seems like we've made the right decision this time around. But we don't get there without people kind of pointing out, hey, you guys need to get this fixed. That's all well and good. That's how it should be. That is how everybody gets better, and TOs need to be receptive to that kind of criticism. The Splatoon community on Twitter, though, just absolutely amplifies and elevates everything to another degree, which hurts the entire scene as a whole. And I don't think it's so much more a Splatoon problem as it is a every community and human being that is a part of Twitter kind of problem. It's just all about clout chasing and mob rallying and putting your thoughts out there with no filters that ties into the issues that we always seem to face here in the Splatoon community. And more so the putting your thoughts out there in no filters. I've always said I've never understood why you lose a tournament set. The first thing you do is grab your phone and throw shade at the team that just beat you. And we saw a little bit of that this past weekend. You see it a lot in SOS, and it's, in my mind, it's the most cringe thing ever, because if you just didn't touch your phone for like 10 minutes, you wouldn't throw shade at a team that just beat you in a tournament, which should be the way that it is. But your phone's right there, your account's right there, nothing's stopping you from firing off a tweet and just going off at it. A lot of folks made tweets over yesterday and today that they're eventually going to regret about how screen affects people, how screen affects other people, even if it doesn't personally affect you. I saw several people, and some people have already deleted their tweets, but basically just saying, like, look, if screen affects you, just don't play Splatoon. Like, this is a game that has a lot of colors, and, there's, ink strikes and all this stuff. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in Splatoon. And people saying, well, if you can't handle that, just don't play the game. There's a pretty good counter argument to that, and it's not an opinion, it is a fact. The fact being that for the past 7 years, if you had an issue that Splatter Screen introduces, that wasn't a thing in the Splatoon community for 7 years. In fact, if you bought Splatoon 3 for $60, you bought it without Splatter Screen being a part of it. You bought a game that Nintendo added something new to it a year later that suddenly made it inaccessible to you. So when other people say, just don't play the game, you're talking to people who bought the game at full price, assumingly $60, who were able to play the game until Nintendo decided to add something new that took that away from them. So, and that's not an opinion. That's not me saying some radical thought. That is a actual fact that I'm pointing out. So you can't, the narrative of just don't play the game, that doesn't hold any water factually. You can't really tell people that, but that's where we've seen a lot of people just kind of misfire off of things for today. But that's what Twitter is. Just knee-jerk reaction, thoughts for likes. And what's frustrating is because, and you guys in chat know this full well, what you see on Twitter is not a accurate representation of what the Splatoon community is actually about. It's not a representation of what any community that's on Twitter is actually about. If you go to a LAN, and this is something I've been constantly preaching here on this podcast, if you want to know what the competitive Splatoon community is actually about, Go to a LAN. Hang out there. You don't even have to play the event. Just go as a spectator. That's something my wife and I have been doing a whole lot more. Just go to a LAN. You're going to see not clout chasing. You're not going to see a bunch of crazy knee-jerk reaction thoughts of things. You're going to see people just enjoying the video game and each other in the community that we've grown. It's not all like perfect sunshine and roses. Every now and then, like 5 years ago, you get the jackass who yelled at a little girl, but everyone pretty much condemned that immediately. You got Cactus doing whatever it is Cactus keeps doing to his chairs. That seems to be a thing. And of course, you get Keo, who will politely offer his suggestion on what his opponent should be using against him in grand finals. Like, there aren't all like sunshine and roses. There's some weird stuff that goes on at LANs. I understand that. But that is a better direct representation of what the competitive Splatoon community is. It's like when you talk about a big city, right? You've never been to a city like a Detroit or Chicago, but when everyone talks about, Chicago's got this high murder rate and Detroit's really run down and it's a scary place, you don't want to go there. And that's the only information you get, is that these big cities are super scary. You see that place a little bit different. But if you talk to somebody who actually lives in Chicago, or talk to somebody who lives in Detroit, Indianapolis has I think we've overpassed Chicago as having not the highest like murder rate, but I think the highest murder rate per capita. I live in Indianapolis, and if you just hear that stat, you might think it's crazy scary. It's not. It's, a lovely city. Chicago's a lovely city. Oakland, same thing, same kind of negative perception it has about that. I was at Genesis 7 back in 2020. Oakland was pretty cool. San Francisco was a lot better across the bay, but still, you get the point I'm with. Detroit was awesome. Buddy's Pizza, that whole downtown area. I'm trying to think of any other restaurant. We kept going to like pizza restaurants, so but still, the Buddy's Detroit style pizza was fantastic. Detroit was a lovely city. But when you only look at it from the outside perspective, which is what I feel like a lot of people do when they look at the competitive Splatoon community, especially when so many people are tweeting out about this death threat that's being made, and that's all they see. And all of a sudden, it's not a fair representation of what things are about. One jackass doesn't define anybody. And it also sucks because it distracted from the actual conversation that should have been had, which is obviously the fair criticism that was taking place. Oh, it's just not a fair representation of what we're about, is the point that I'm getting at there. Again, I don't think there was any ill intent from anybody that was spreading things out. And obviously, if somebody makes a death threat, you should be able to vocalize it and let people know. But don't think that the Splatoon community is the one that did it. It's not. It's not at all what the community is about. One other final point that I kind of want to make out here is I've seen a lot of people say, well, you need to respect your TOs, and, how dare you guys be rude to TOs and stuff. I mean, yeah, it goes both ways. TOs need to respect players too. I don't see a lot of people tweeting out things about that. TOs need to be able to be open to criticism, being able to listen to things. And one of the things that I've kind of seen brought up, and this isn't the first time this has been brought up, but I've seen it brought up yet again. Be careful what kind of TOs that you're critical of, because if IPL and Dapple Productions goes away, you guys are going to be really sorry. No, like, nobody's above criticism. Nobody. And just because IPL and Dapple Productions are a little bit higher up on the echelon doesn't mean we're like I didn't really write down a correct word, but it doesn't mean that like we're above criticism, or like don't be mean to us or we'll go away. We'll take your low ink away. No, that's I don't like that narrative. And I understand where it's coming from, because our predecessors that came before IPL, the GSMs, the Ink TVs, the in-game TVs have all gone through and come back and for whatever reason faded away. And ultimately the fate of IPL and Dapple Productions will be that at some point, not anytime soon, but of course those things are going to start fading away eventually. But it shouldn't be used as a deterrent. When TOs screw up, it shouldn't be a shield that we hide behind. It should be us listening to it and responding to it and understanding what the criticism is actually about. What we try to do here on the Popcast is weed through crap. And yes, there was a lot of crap being flung yesterday. But if you can weed through the crap, you'll find out the thing. Oh, this is what we should learn from. This is what can make us better. This is what can continue to prove us over the course of time. So I get where that statement's coming from. I just don't agree with the narrative of, hey, be appreciative of TOs, but at the same time, TOs need to be appreciative of players. Like there is no low ink without you guys. There's no proving grounds without your stupid pickup names I have to change every single time. There's no Sindow grand finals without all the great teams that we have signing up for that. The players are just as important as this one, if not more important than the TOs. And I feel like the TO love gets kind of splattered a lot without people actually being thinking about it. It's a two-way street. There needs to be an open line of communication with that. And yes, there are several key people. It's like people are getting older and they start stepping away from things. There are several key people that you're like, man, this sucks that this person's gone. Like you don't want any, like nobody's unreplaceable. I was gone from IPL for 3 months when PJ was first born. IPL operated just fine. Proving Grounds went off without a hitch. Low Ink was great. Honda Squivik won, and they've been letting me know about it ever since. So things were fine when I was gone. I've listed off some names here, and I know this isn't everybody in general, but Toasty, like if Toasty were to go away, I think you would start to realize how many different things Toasty has a hand in that would have to be like, okay, can't be replaced by one person, multiple people. Obviously, Hoenn Hero of IPL, and I don't think people kind of realize what great things Hoenn does as far as our leadership is concerned with IPL. But if Hoenn leaves IPL, that's gonna suck. Pinky with Dapple Productions does a fantastic job, and I know Pinky has several people within their organization who they would feel very highly of. I've always said nice things about JPEG. JPEG's been a huge asset to IPL and just me in general. All the events that Thoma's a part of, obviously, does a fantastic job with all of those things. Roundy's kind of an unsung hero as well. I don't think you guys realize if there's a tournament that requires seeding, odds are Roundy has been a part of it and actually knows what he's doing, whereas I've seen a lot of seeders just flat out not know what they're doing. Roundy is you guys don't realize how much the community's seeding is going to fall off if Roundy is like ever decides not to be a part of things. And obviously Magic Able, I mean, damn, like Magic leaving is a huge shout to a lot of the land stuff. Again, nobody is irreplaceable, but yeah, like Magic stepping away. If Magic truly is stepping away from land stuff, that is some big shoes that multiple people, not just one, would end up having to fill. For me personally, though, yeah, I'll eventually step down, but it's going to be on my terms. It's not going to be because of some death threat or because of a decision that IPL made that we should obviously fix this. Like it's going to be me that decides, or I guess Hoenn firing me. I guess that other than that is that. And eventually I am going to step away. You know, I'm getting older. I don't know how much longer I can get away with wearing my baseball hat backwards and it being acceptable. Maybe it's already not acceptable at my age. PJ is growing at an alarming rate. And full disclosure, this is an open invitation. My son has gotten me sick 4 times this month. I'm sick yet again. I love the little snot to death, but he can't stop sneezing and coughing all over me. If there's anybody that wants to take our son until he's old enough to take over-the-counter medication and get over all these colds and bugs that he's getting through, shoot me in a DM. I'm totally joking. I know someone's going to clip that out of context. But I'm getting old, man. I'm getting older. Children get older. Eventually, I will be stepping down. But I want IPL. And I'm not, again, I'm not the one who created IPL. I'm not the founder or anything like that. But my hope for IPL is that it does stand the test of time. I don't want IPL to be like In-Game TV or Ink TV or GSM. Not that I'm saying those were like bad organizations, although the endings of some of them were pretty cringe. What I'm saying is I want IPL to be able to look back at those organizations, figure out what caused them to fall apart, and learn from it, and to continue to improve. I think one of the reasons why some of those organizations fell apart is because they faced situations like yesterday. They made a ruling. It turned out to be the obvious no-brainer, you made a wrong ruling kind of thing, and the overwhelming collapsing of competitive Splatoon Twitter ultimately did them in. And I understand that completely 150% because I experienced that a lot. I know several TOs outside of IPL experience that same kind of thing. But that's why I keep coming on here. That's why I keep trying to be as transparent about my personal thoughts as possible about IPL related things. And I want there to be a better dialogue between players and TOs. I want there to be more transparency. I feel like that was something that was lacking in the past regimes, and why I feel like this is something that could be the reason why IPL does stand the test of the time. And why do I want IPL to stand the test of the time? Because I'm a stubborn old bastard. That's why. And I'm crazy competitive. I want IPL to be the number one. And it doesn't get that way if we just turn on blinders to things. I want to eventually hand off Low Ink to somebody who's going to make it even better than what it is right now. Same thing with Proving Grounds. Although handing out Proving Grounds is pretty easy. That's like the most brain-dead tournament to run ever. I want IPL to have improved land presences in North America and Europe. We can't do it by focusing on just the negative or validating the psychotic, but weeding through the crap to find the right kind of criticism that will continue to push us forward towards greatness. That is my hope with IPL and the competitive scene as a whole. And yes, is this a dramatic response to the splatter color screen thing? Yes. At the core, that is what the topic is about. But when you look deeper into what everybody's been talking about, why people are starting to step away, why more TOs are starting to speak out about things, it goes a little bit deeper. These are problems we've been having for years. These are problems we are going to continue to have for the rest of our mortal human lives until the sun takes us all out. Doesn't mean we can't improve and find ways to continue to grow, though. That is my hope with IPL, and that's my hope with the takeaway of all this. My apologies to the highlighted messages. Sometimes those get buried. I can't scroll all the way up. I think I caught some of them. And of course, I always read a highlighted message, and it's like crazy gone, and I don't even remember what I was talking about at the time. Keon said, this speculation and correlation, which is not exclusive to Comp Splatoon, is one of the most dangerous things with Twitter. Yes. I in all honesty, if you're using Twitter, I think the right way to do it was the way Gus did it, which was just make jokes and stuff like that. I liked it when Gus did that. But every now and then it needs to be more serious conversation. Which, by the way, I've said this many times. If you were looking for a Splatoon thread, I guess that's a little bit way less about clout chasing and mob mentality and all that stuff, Blue Sky is the place to go. Blue Sky is pretty chill, and there's people who will give opinions about things and people that will give honest, good opinions about the opinions other people give. I have several codes. Feel free to DM me. I'll send them out to you. I sent one to a Krill Streak member last time. Definitely get on Blue Sky. I highly recommend it. Thoma said, am I pronouncing your name right, by the way? I've heard Brush pronounce it differently, but Brush is weird, so I wouldn't really trust that. Um, Thoma, alongside Twitter, I think people generally need to listen and attempt to learn and understand the nuances of conversation about issues before just haphazardly jumping in. Yes. Unfortunately, Twitter can't really do stuff like that. Hohen, we need TOs to run events so we can have a comp scene. We need players to play in events to have a comp scene. It goes both ways. Be good to each other and discuss things in a reasonable manner. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's it. Okay, cool. I'll go back and watch this VOD later and see all the things people point out into Toma. Great, and more toe themed things. That's what this community needs. Fine, I can remember that. Choma. So that's gonna do it for today's episode of the Popcast. Sorry it was such a heavy topic. I mean, splatter screen ban led to all of this. It's just kind of where we are. Obviously much more deeper than we thought it would be, but here we are. Next week, we'll be getting back to our regularly scheduled talking about stupid stuff that actually happens in tournaments, I hope. In the meantime, if you'd like to be a part of the podcast in any way, feel free to reach out. My socials below: Twitter, Mr._Popgun, Discord, Popgun, #5882, YouTube at... I guess I just completely made all that stuff up, isn't it? I need to actually write an outro and memorize it rather than just repeating what I've been doing the whole time. Let's go to Rose. How about raid Rose of Battle? Get vaccinated. Make sure you wear a mask. I don't know if you can still sign up for Genesis or not. I think you still sign up as a spectator. I don't know. Play the video game. Splatoon's actually pretty fun. Play it every now and then. It's actually pretty cool.